Welcome on in, everybody. Today we're talking about one of my favorite groups on the entire Browns roster. We're talking running back. And I am really happy to be doing this show because this is one of the most fun things for me. So, as always, this is Brownstown. My name is Joseph Potter, and let's get right on into it. Now, we have a pretty interesting situation because we have a first-time head coach in the NFL who is also the architect of a two-time national champion in Georgia a few years back, 2021, 2022, resurrected a program, Southern Miss, I believe, and won a Conference USA championship as the head coach there. And quite frankly, what a lot of people won't tell you, Lamar Jackson had won MVP, but he had kind of plateaued a little bit. And he had been a very good quarterback for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, before Todd Monken arrived. Nobody's going to tell you that. There's a reason Greg Roman was no longer in Baltimore. So when people say, well, you couldn't have failed with Lamar Jackson as quarterback, Greg Roman pretty much did. So we can end that debate. But what people don't remember is who the running game coordinator was, especially last year. It was the Browns' new offensive coordinator, Schweitzer. And his boss is Todd Monken. In Baltimore was Todd Monken. So what we're looking at now is that system coming over. So what I'm looking at right now, I'm just going to look at the last two stops for Todd Monken. That's Georgia and Baltimore. Georgia and Baltimore both had great running games. They both maximized quarterback skill sets. And they were both adaptable offensive systems. A lot of what Monken does, a lot of the times he will start with 3 receivers or 2 tight ends. Sometimes he'll go 4 receivers, but most of the time it's 3. And he'll use a lot of motion. And he will use a lot of H-back, fullback. Sometimes he will motion guys into these positions to create mismatches and create confusion. He also does a lot with quarterback draws and quarterback options. I haven't seen as much with wide receiver options, which is the optional routes that they run a lot of times, which is because that has to have the quarterback and the wide receiver on the same page to make that work, the option routes. The biggest emphasis for this group, they're going to be used in a variety of situations. One thing I watched in minicamp was the volume of passing routes they ran. That is a big, big thing in this offense, because if they're not running the ball, a lot of times they're going out on a passing route. And I saw a good number of wheel routes. I saw them get out into the flats a lot. And I saw a couple just flat running wide receiver routes. So what we're going to be looking at here is this is going to be a quick offense, and most of the time it's going to be surrounding the running backs. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Lamar Jackson stalled in Baltimore for those years because they were relying on him too much and his skills. What Todd Monken did was bring in guys that can make his skills shine and put a running game around him that could take the pressure off of him. And he shined. And he also cleaned up the mechanics. And that's a big thing with Monken. He's an old school coach. He's 70 years old. He's been doing this since 1989. He wants to clean up the mechanics. He doesn't like mistakes. He doesn't have time for mistakes. And that's what he's emphasizing. So how does that offense, when he uses those type of things, translate to the running back room? Well, let's get into that. Because right now, we're looking at 4 guys. And we should know these 4 guys because they were all here last year. They brought in a 5th guy, undrafted free agent. I expect him maybe be on the practice squad. But we're starting with Quinshon Judkins. He's the bell cow. 6 foot, 221 pounds. He's explosive. And he's been rehabbing all offseason. He didn't get a camp last year. He didn't get a camp. Isaiah Bond didn't get a camp. And Shedeur Sanders only got a camp if you would say throwing to trash cans was a camp. So there are 3 guys that didn't get a camp last year and that are working together. Now, Judkins was a little different than Sanders, but was on the same wavelength as Bond because he had some legal issues where Bond was unjustly accused and ended up winning in court. His accuser, who faced federal charges, I haven't followed up on that case, for that situation. And I haven't followed up on Quinshon Judkins' situation because it's personal stuff. I only get into personal stuff if it's relevant to the situation. And while it was relevant last year, I wasn't doing this show last year. This year is not relevant. The fact that he gets a camp is relevant. And he has shown a far more burst than he had last year. He's showing better hands than he did last year. He's showing more attention to detail than he did last year. Now, remember what I said. Todd Monken is all about attention to detail. That's how he was in Georgia. That's how he was in Baltimore. And from the looks of it, that's the way he is here. Judkins looks more refined than he looked last year. So he looks more refined, he looks more explosive. So expect Judkins to come out the gates hot and heavy. with the improved offensive line, I know people are questioning whether it's actually improved. It's like, and those people must be blind, deaf, and dumb because it can't get worse. It can't get worse. So don't expect Judkins to be getting hit 4 yards into the backfield this year. And if he gets running room, maybe looking at a top 10 running back this year. That also leads me to Rocket Sanders. Guy I've loved since college. Love me some Rocket Sanders. 6 foot, 230 pounds. Got nice speed. A nose for the end zone that is probably on the wavelength of Kareem Hunt. But I think right now in his career, well, he doesn't have the overall skill set that Kareem Hunt had early in his career. He is a guy that complements Quinshon Judkins really well. Because Rocket Sanders can be both a one gap running back and he can be a power running back. And something he's shown in camp is once again improved hands and improved ability within the passing game. This is something that is going to be invaluable for both Sanders and Judkins. And those are your number 1 and 2 running backs. It's because right now you're looking at 2 guys with different skill sets. Judkins is far more explosive. He can hit the holes. But Sanders is no slouch at that. He'll hit the holes. He's explosive. He looks leaner. He's still listed at 230 pounds, same as last year. But he looks leaner in camp. So this is a second-year guy. This is third year, I believe. And he is, right now he's looking at a second contract. Because after this year, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, I believe. So he's coming in, he's looking to go. And if he and Judkins can run it off, you'd be looking at your running back tandem for this team for a long time. Now, that being said, we also have to look at the other 2 guys. Who is the third man? Bring it back to late 90s NWO angle here. Who could the third man be? Well, we got Dylan Sampson. We got Amani Marshall. And, well, we got a lot of people that like Marshall better than Sampson. But one thing that I have seen in camp is there's going to be a renewed interest in the screen game. And that's one of the reasons that I think they're emphasizing the hand movement so much, the ability to get your hands up, catch the ball in position to run. That gives the advantage squarely to Dylan Sampson. Because we saw it last year. You get this guy a screen pass, and you get the guys out there in front of him, there's a chance he takes it for 60 yards every time. Dylan Sampson is explosive. I think he's only 21 years old. 5'8", 200 pounds. Get him out there behind those big guys in open space. That's a mismatch. So if Sampson can continue to utilize that big game-breaking experience, that game-breaking ability, then you could be looking at somebody who has lined up in the slot, who lined up wide for some reason last year a couple times. I don't even think it was enough to hit a blip on the statistical radar, but it happened. You can look at somebody who can hit the end arounds, who can run traditional running back sets, who can spread out as a slot in the wide receiver. This is kind of what Cleveland fans hoped Duke Johnson would have been, but didn't turn out being. And then you have Amani Marshall. He's just a strong all-around player. I do think he needs to work a little bit on his hands, not catching the ball per se, but he didn't get a lot of statistical fumbles last year, but we saw on a few handoffs he kind of bumbled them a little bit. So it's just working that handoff. And I think part of that is because the Browns have run at least 4 quarterbacks in the last 2 years, last 3 years. You haven't been able to do anything with the Browns quarterbacks as far as getting used to them, which is another reason it's good to you're not having 4 quarterbacks in camp. Well, you are having 4 camp. One of them is so raw that he's barely taking snaps. I think he only had 1 or 2 snaps in mini camp. So that's going to help him, that he's able to actually take snaps from quarterbacks that are going to be playing. And I think that's going to help all 4 of these running backs. So I think Dylan Sampson is going to be the number 3 back. I think they're running it back. Judkins 1, Sanders 2, Dylan Sampson 3. And I really like that group because Sampson isn't a true number 3. So that means you can use Marshall in that spot because Sampson could end up as a slot receiver. Simpson could be the running back. Sampson could be everywhere. So you want to keep all 4. You can even put Sampson back to return punts and kicks. Swear, we see Gage Larverdam back there again this year. I think half of Cleveland's going to blow its top. So there is a slot there for keeping both Marshall and Dylan Sampson. And you keep both of them along with Judkins and Rocket Sanders. This group is a big group. Judkins, 221. Sanders, 230. Marshall, 6'1", 225 pounds. So you got big guys. And then you have Dylan Sampson, who's your home run hitter. And outside of one big whiff by Samson, most of what I've seen is better pass protection. Now, let's face it, no pads yet. Okay, no pads. But it's there. So, Judkins, Sanders, Samson, Marshall. Gotta ask you guys, who do you think the third man is going to be? Because, we don't have Bobby the Brain Heenan here to tell us. So, that being said, go ahead, hit that ding-a-ling down low if you enjoyed the content. And remember, like, share, subscribe, and this shot's on us. You guys have a great day.